Daniel's eyes opened slowly, pain pressing behind them like a hammer. His body was stiff, sore, and cold. The last thing he remembered was the explosion, a sharp light, then nothing. Now he was lying on a metal floor. Inside a strange glowing cell, the air smelled like burnt iron and something sour. He tried to move, but chains clinked around his wrists and ankles. His mouth was dry, and a cut burned across his cheek. He blinked, trying to focus. Across the room stood a tall figure, silent, watching him. Not human, not friendly. Her skin was dark silver, like metal under moonlight. Her eyes were sharp, glowing faint blue. Her armor was made of some bone-like material, decorated with marks, and in her hand, and clearly dangerous. "You are awake, human," she said coldly, her voice deep but smooth. "You were taken alive." By my choice, Daniel sat up slowly, muscles protesting. "Where am I?" he asked, coughing. "Prisoner quarters, on board the war frigate Celerith." She answered, "You were found after the battle on Terra Outpost 9. Daniel frowned. "My squad? Gone," she replied, without emotion. "You fought hard, I give you that." He stared at her, trying to understand. She wasn't acting like a normal enemy soldier. There was no hatred in her tone, only curiosity. Then, suddenly, she turned her back and began removing parts of her armor. Daniel quickly looked away, out of respect. He heard the armor dropping, piece by piece. Clink, clank, thud. The silence felt heavy. "You did not look," she said softly. After a moment, he turned his head and saw her standing in a light combat suit, bare arms marked with long scars. Her cheeks, at least what looked like cheeks, were darker now, almost like a blush. "I expected you would stare," she added, looking almost confused. "Where I come from," Daniel said. "You don't stare at someone when they're getting dressed." She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "My name is Kylara," she said, "commander of the 3rd Spear of Zinthar, Daniel." He replied simply. She nodded once. "I have studied humans, but never met one alive before. I was told you are savage, dishonorable, but perhaps not all of you." He raised an eyebrow. "And you? What are you?" "A warrior," she said firmly, "raised for combat, born to serve the code." "Code. The ancient laws of my kind," she said. "We do not kill those who show honor, nor lie to the enemy, nor take glory from the weak." Daniel stared at her, amazed. "So why am I still alive?" "You saved one of your men in the blast," she said. "Shielded him with your body, though you could have escaped alone. That is honor. My code demanded I bring you back alive." Daniel let out a breath. "So now what?" "You keep me here until your army invades Earth." Kylara didn't answer. She looked away, as if unsure. "You are not what I expected," she said finally. "Perhaps. Neither am I." Just then, a loud alarm echoed through the corridor outside the cell. Kylara stood tall, grabbing her spear. "We are under alert," she said. "Remain here." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "And do not worry, human," she added. "I would not let harm come to you." Daniel watched her leave, his heart beating fast. He didn't know what game this was, or what she really wanted, but one thing was clear. This was no normal prisoner situation, and Kylara was no normal enemy. He looked down at the chain on his wrist. Then back at the door. There was something strange in the way she looked at him, like she was watching him not just as a captive, but something else. Something had begun between them. He didn't know what. But he was sure of one thing. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. The door slid open with a hiss, and Kylara stepped in, holding a spear that crackled with energy. Her eyes scanned the cell and landed on Daniel, who was standing in the center. His arms no longer in chains, he had used a broken pipe and a loose bolt to unlock the cuffs while she was gone. And now he stood ready, unsure if he should fight run or talk. She said nothing for a moment, then lowered her spear slowly. "You are clever human," she said, "but foolish too." Daniel held his ground, his heart pounding in his chest. "I thought prisoners were supposed to stay chained," he said. Cholera stepped closer, her boots heavy on the metal floor. "You are no longer a prisoner," she said. "You passed the test." "What test?" he asked. "The test of will and honor," she replied. Simply, Daniel raised an eyebrow. Trying to understand, she circled him slowly, like a lion studying prey, or maybe a comrade. "In my culture, honor is sacred," she said. "Our ancestors believed that warriors must be tested not just in battle, but in choices." Daniel tilted his head, confused. "And what choice did I make? You did not attack me. She said you had a weapon and surprise, but you held back. Some would say you are weak. I say you have restraint. That is strength." Daniel was silent, unsure if this was some strange trap. Cholera suddenly turned and threw her spear into the wall with force, and it stuck there buzzing. "If you had tried to escape," she said, "I would have hunted you across the galaxy, but you stayed and faced me." She took a deep breath and walked toward the wall, pressing a glowing button that opened the cell completely. "Come," she said, "we walk now as equals." Daniel followed her through the cold halls of the alien ship, unsure what to expect. They passed others of her kind, most of them watching with cold eyes. Some growled lowly, others whispered in their language words Daniel could not understand. Collar walked tall and proud. Ignoring them, they reached a small chamber filled with light and a strange red tree in the center, its leaves floating in the air like feathers. "This is the oath room," she said. "It is where warriors bind or break their duty." "You brought me here to swear something?" Daniel asked. "I was told to kill all humans on sight, but I remembered something a child on a battlefield." She said she had human eyes wide with fear and blood on her face. "I could not strike her. I let her run and I was punished for it. Dishonor, they called it, but I call it the beginning of truth." Daniel stepped closer, watching her. Expression changed from hard to almost sad. "I do not know what you are, human, or why you fight as you do, but I know this. You are not the monster our stories say, and neither am I." Daniel looked at the red tree, then at her. "I saw you hesitate before," he said. "When you took off your armor, you looked like you didn't want me to look." She nodded slowly. "It is forbidden for warriors to show skin to enemies. It is a sacred rule." "But you looked away. That meant something. It meant respect." Daniel felt a strange weight in his chest, something like guilt or hope, or both. "So what now?" he asked. "Now we choose," she said. "You can walk free on this ship under my shield, or you can fight and die like the others. But I hope you choose to walk, because I want to learn more about you, and maybe myself too." Daniel stepped forward and reached out his hand. She stared at it, then placed hers in his, a handshake between species that were once enemies. And maybe now something else. From that moment, everything changed. The code of honor was no longer just words on stone. It was real living between them in each breath, each choice. Cholera, the warrior, and Daniel the human had started something rare, something dangerous. Something that could break the war itself, but for now, they walked side by side into the unknown, not as prisoner and guard, but as something more. The jungle outside the alien base was silent, except for the crunch of strange leaves under Cholera's boots. Daniel followed close behind, sweat on his brow, his eyes scanning the shadows between twisted trees and floating vines. They had escaped the ship 3 hours ago, using a stolen patrol skiff, and now walked deep into the unknown terrain of Cholera's homeworld. "We are being watched," Daniel said softly. "I know," Cholera replied without looking back. Her hand hovered near her blade, her senses sharp like fire. "Why did you bring me here?" he asked again. "Because this is the only place where—" "I know the land," she answered, "and the only place where they might hesitate to follow." They moved deeper into the green fog, the sky above pulsing red, as if the planet itself breathed slowly. Suddenly, Cholera stopped. One hand raised, Daniel froze behind her. Listening, the jungle whispered. Then it screamed. A shadow dropped from a tree above Cholera, spun and caught the attacker mid-air, throwing him into a boulder with force. Two more rushed from the side, their bodies covered in dark armor, not like hers, more brutal, more violent traitors, she hissed low. They do not follow the code. Daniel ducked as a spear flew past his head. He grabbed a rock and swung it at a charging enemy, knocking the helmet off, revealing sharp teeth and a single red eye. They are hunting us, he shouted. Not us, Cholera said. Me, because I spared you. She leaped into the air, twisting and landing a kick that shattered the ground under her enemy. Daniel watched in awe. But the battle was not over. A fourth warrior emerged, holding a strange weapon, glowing blue. He fired, and a bolt of energy struck Cholera in the side, sending her crashing into the tree. Cholera, he shouted, running to her. She tried to stand, blood dripping from her arm. Go, she said, her voice strained. You have a chance. I am not leaving you, Daniel replied, grabbing her and pulling her behind a rock. Another blast missed them by inches. Daniel picked up her fallen blade, heavy and humming. He stood and faced the last enemy, fear in his chest, but something stronger in his hands. The warrior laughed and charged. Daniel swung wildly, the blade too heavy for him, but he caught the attacker's arm and pushed back. Cholera rose behind them, weak but standing. She drove her fist into the back of the enemy's neck, and he collapsed. Breathing heavy, she fell to her knees. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. You are hurt badly, he said. She looked up at him, eyes tired. I would have died without you, she said. Again he smiled without thinking. Guess that makes us even. She laughed once, short and quiet. They sat under the glowing tree branches, the jungle slowly falling silent again. You fight with heart, she said. Not skill, but heart. I will take that as a compliment, he said. It is, she replied, leaning against the rock. Daniel checked the wound. We need to stop the bleeding, or you will pass out. There is a cave nearby, she said weakly. It is sacred. They will not follow there. He helped her stand, and together they walked slowly through the trees, their steps uneven, but determined. As they reached the cave, the wind shifted and birds scattered above. Daniel looked back once more at the jungle behind. We cannot stay here forever, he said. Cholera nodded no, but for now, we rest. Inside the cave, the air was warm and filled with faint light from crystals on the wall. Daniel laid her down gently, and she closed her eyes. Today you saved me, Cholera said quietly. Not because of code, because of choice. Daniel sat beside her, gripping the strange blade. Yeah, he said, I guess that makes us something else now. Not enemies, not prisoners, something new. She smiled, eyes half closed. Rest, now human, she said. Tomorrow, we fight again. But not for war, for survival, for each other, and maybe for peace outside the cave. The jungle kept its secrets. But inside, a human and an alien warrior rested side by side, both scarred, both changed, and both ready for whatever came next. Together, the cave walls glowed with soft blue light, casting shadows on Daniel's tired face. He sat by a small fire, made from Cholera's survival tools, watching her sleep. She looked different in rest. Less like a warrior, more like a person. Her armor lay beside her, cracked and stained, the spear broken in two near the entrance. Daniel felt the weight of the alien blade across his knees, still unsure how to carry it right. The silence was deep, but not empty. It hummed with unspoken words, with memories too heavy to speak. When Cholera's eyes opened, she did not move. At first, she stared at the ceiling of the cave, listening to the flicker of flame and the rhythm of Daniel's breathing. You are awake, he said softly. She nodded once, then sat up slowly, her hand pressed to her side. Pain sharp, but fading, she said. You should rest more, he replied. I will recover, she said. It is the way of my kind. Daniel looked at her, unsure if it was pride or habit. You always heal that fast, only when the mind is calm, she said. When fear is gone, he looked away for a moment, then back. You were afraid, back there." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Yes," she said, "not of death, but of losing something I cannot name." Daniel poked the fire with a stick, the embers flaring. "I have been afraid since this war started," he said. "Afraid to die, afraid to fail, afraid to forget what it means to be human." She leaned forward slowly. "What does it mean to you to feel everything he said, even when it hurts?" Clara thought on that for a long moment. "In my world," she said, "we are taught to control emotion, to hide weakness even in victory. We do not smile, even in pain. We do not cry." "And do you agree with that?" he asked. "I did once," she said. "Now I am not so sure." Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a small object, a photo worn and creased. He handed it to her. "This was my sister," he said. "She died in the first wave of attacks." Clara held the photo gently, as if it might break. "She had kind eyes," she said. "She did," Daniel replied, "and she believed we could make peace with your kind." "Do you believe that too?" she asked. "I want to," he said, "but wanting and believing are different things." Kala returned the photo with care. "I once saw a child on a human colony," she said, "during a raid. She was alone and crying, and I had orders to finish all targets, but I did not lift my blade. I could not." "And they punished you for that?" he said. "Yes," she replied, "and I questioned everything since." They were both quiet for a while, the fire slowly fading to red glow. Daniel broke the silence. "What happens if we are caught again?" "They will execute me for betrayal," she said, "and you for being beside me." He gave a tired laugh. "Then we better not get caught." She smiled faintly, human. Humor strange but not unpleasant. He looked at her more carefully now, noticing the scar above her eye and the small tremble in her hand. "You look strong, but you carry pain," she nodded slowly. "I have seen my sisters fall in battle. I have buried commanders with honor. I have fought wars without understanding why." He leaned closer. "And now I want something different," she said. "Not victory, not revenge. Just a chance to live." Daniel held her gaze. "Maybe we can find that chance together." Clara reached out and touched the edge of his sleeve. Her fingers. "Let your skin is soft," she said. "Unlike mine, and yet you are the one who saved me." He smiled. "Maybe soft is not weak after all." She rested her head against the cave wall, eyes half closed. "Tomorrow we move again," she said. "There is a place where old warriors hide those who walked away from war. And they will help us if they believe in our story," she said. "Then we make them believe," he replied. She nodded slowly. "I trust you now, human." Daniel looked into the quiet fire, his heart steady. "And I trust you, warrior." Outside the cave, the night winds sang across the alien forest, and in that hidden cave, two enemies, no longer enemies, sat side by side, sharing silence and sorrow, sharing hope. The morning sky turned blood red as the twin suns rose behind the jagged cliffs. Daniel stood at the edge of the rocky path, staring down into a misty valley below. Beside him, Clara checked her wrist scanner, her face calm, but her body tense. "They are coming," she said. "The hunters." Daniel glanced at her, eyes sharp. "Your people sent assassins?" "No," she said. "Worse, elite enforcers from the high command. They do not follow the code. They follow orders only." Daniel tightened the strap on his shoulder bag, his hand resting on the alien blade she had given him. "Then we run. We cannot outrun them forever," Kala replied. "But we can make them bleed." She crouched beside a bush, her fingers brushing across strange blue leaves. "There is a cave system under this valley," she said. "If we reach it, they will lose their tech advantage." She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "But you must be sure." "Daniel, once we enter, we may not come out." He nodded without fear. "I am already in deeper than I ever planned." They moved fast through the valley, the wind whispering through the trees like voices from another world. The ground shook as something above them screamed from the sky. A black dropship sliced through the clouds and landed on a nearby ridge, kicking dust into the air. From the metal belly stepped four figures clad in armor darker than space, their faces hidden behind Silver Mask's Kala froze behind a stone wall, her breath steady. They sent the four fangs, she whispered. Daniel whispered back, sounds like a rock band. She did not laugh. They are not a joke, she said. One of them once defeated a rebel army alone. Daniel swallowed hard and looked at the narrow path ahead. We have to keep moving. They ran between trees, across sharp rocks, sliding down into narrow gullies. Behind them, the four fangs moved without sound, like shadows without mercy. One of them raised a hand and a beam of red light traced their path through the forest. Kalara pulled Daniel aside just before the blast struck a tree where he had stood. Keep going, she shouted. I will slow them down. No way, he shouted back. Not this time. She turned and threw a shock bomb into the air, which exploded in a burst of static, blocking the scanners for a few seconds. They dove into a narrow tunnel, just as another blast hit the rocks behind them. Inside the cave, it was dark and wet, the walls glowing faint green with strange crystals. Cholera leaned against the wall, panting. They will enter soon, she said, but they will not expect us to fight here. Daniel lit a flare and looked around. These tunnels go on forever. He said we could get lost. Then we must use that to our advantage, she said, and trap them. She handed him a small device. Place this on the left wall. It will mimic a power signal and lure them. He ran ahead, placing the beacon, then returned quickly. Cholera had drawn her backup blades, both shorter than her usual spear. I was trained to kill traitors, she said. Now I am one. Daniel nodded and raised a broken metal pipe wrapped in cloth. You are not alone. The first hunter entered silently. Scanning the space, he stepped on a pressure plate Daniel had covered with dust. The ceiling dropped in an instant, crushing the enemy with stone. One down, Cholera whispered. The second and third came from opposite sides, blades humming. Cholera moved like lightning, striking one in the throat and dodging the second. Daniel swung his pipe, catching the last assassin by surprise, knocking the mask loose. Underneath was not a monster, but a face that looked too young to be a killer. The enemy paused, then reached for a dagger. Cholera finished him with a quick strike to the neck. It is done, she said. Not yet, Daniel replied. The fourth one is still out there. A slow clap echoed through the cave as the last hunter emerged, tall and calm. His armor cracked, but his eyes glowing. You have become soft. Kalara, he said. Stepping forward, she stepped in front of Daniel, her body ready. No. She said, I have become strong. The battle was fast, brutal. Kalara took a hit to the leg. Daniel blocked a strike meant for her with his arm. Together, they brought the last warrior down, striking as one. When it ended, the cave was silent once more. Kalara fell to her knees, breathing hard. They will send more, she said. Then we keep fighting, Daniel replied, until they stop. She looked at him, her voice low. You chose this path with me. I did, he said, and I would choose it again. Outside the cave, the suns had risen fully, but inside, something else had risen. Not just survival, something stronger, unity. The cave walls trembled with distant thunder as rain fell heavy outside. The jungle wept for the battle. But inside the mountain shelter, Kalara stood tall beneath a sacred stone arch. Daniel watched from the shadows, unsure what to say or do. She had been silent since they defeated the last hunter. Now she stood barefoot, her armor scattered across the floor like broken promises. This is a ritual, she said finally, not looking at him, a breaking of chains, not forged in iron, but in blood. He stepped closer, his body sore from wounds, his eyes still holding the fire of the fight. What kind of ritual, he asked. One forbidden, she replied. One that unbinds me from the warrior caste. She turned slowly and placed a single red crystal on a stone pedestal. A soft hum filled the air as it glowed. Every warrior wears their armor from birth, she said. Piece by piece, it is earned in battle. In training and pain, to remove it by choice is betrayal. To destroy it is rebirth. Daniel stayed quiet, sensing the weight of her words. He had never seen her this still. This raw Kala unlatched the final piece from her chest plate and let it fall. The metal echoed on the stone like a distant drum. She pulled the badge from her shoulder and placed it beside the crystal. Her skin bore marks, scars, stories, some fresh, some faded, each a memory she had once been proud of. Now she offered them to the fire. Daniel turned away out of respect. She noticed she stepped toward the fire and picked up a flame stick. Without hesitation, she touched it to the armor. Blue flame burst around the pieces. They cracked and burned, releasing soft sparks that danced into the air. She spoke an oath in her language, her voice trembling. When she finished, she turned to him, no longer a commander, no longer bound. You did not watch, she said softly again. He nodded. It felt right. He said. She stepped forward, her eyes searching his. In my world, no male looks away when a female breaks rank. It is a moment of dominance or shame. You chose respect. Daniel met her gaze. You chose freedom that deserves more than eyes. It deserves understanding. Kalara sat beside him by the dying fire. She looked tired, not weak, human tired, the kind that comes after letting go. You know nothing of our songs, she said, or our stars, or our gods, but you walk beside me still, because I do not need to know everything to care, he replied. Pain is pain. War is war. You bleed like we do. She gave him a long look, then handed him a small object, a memory token. Silver with a crack across its center. This held my mother's last words, she said. Until now, I could not let them go. But they are yours now. Why me? He asked. Because I want someone outside my world to carry part of me, she said. Not as a warrior, as Kalar. Daniel closed his fingers around the token. He felt its warmth, its weight. Thank you, he said. Outside the storm passed winds, shifting the clouds. Stars peeked through for the first time in days. Kalara stood and faced the open sky. The rain had washed the blood from her arms. She raised her head and took a breath that was hers alone. You do not have to stay with me, she said quietly. My path is exile now. Danger will follow. Always. Daniel stepped beside her, his voice steady. Then let it follow us both. She turned slightly, a smile hiding in the corner of her mouth. You are a strange human, Daniel. I get that a lot. They looked out across the horizon, two shadows outlined by the last light of the fading storm. What comes next? She asked. Whatever we choose, he answered. She nodded slowly. Then we choose together. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not duty, something rare, trust, real, earned, unbreakable. The stars above burned cold and bright as the stolen scout ship cut through the silence of deep space. Its engines hummed like a distant song, one filled with exhaustion. Freedom and the unknown inside the ship. Daniel sat near the cockpit, his hands resting on the edge of a console. He stared at the distant planets floating in the black, like silent gods. Each one held a story he would never know. But his story was now tied to one being. Only Kalara stood at the back of the ship, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the hollow void ahead. Her armor was gone, her skin marked only by old battles and fresh choices. She had not spoken in hours, not since they escaped the hunters and sent the message. Daniel leaned back, closing his eyes. That message had been dangerous. A signal sent to both their species, a message of peace from two warriors once enemies, now fugitives. Most would ignore it, some would call it treason. But a few might hear, a few might understand. Kalara walked toward him, her steps light but sure. She stopped beside a sealed chamber, its glass frosted from within. Cryosleep pod, she said. Long-range travel will require rest. The ship is old, but it will hold. Daniel looked at her, then at the pod. Not the ending I expected, he said. Not the beginning I feared. Kalara opened the chamber slowly, the hiss of pressure releasing into the air. I do not dream in sleep, she said, but I hope when I wake the world will be different, better, even a little. Daniel stood. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the cracked silver token she had given him. He placed it gently near the controls. This stays here, he said. a reminder of who we were and who we chose to become. Kala stepped into the pod, one foot, then the other. Her body tensed for a moment. Then relaxed, she lay back against the cushion of the chamber. "You will take the first shift?" he asked. She nodded once, eyes beginning to close. "I trust you, Daniel." He looked at her one last time. "You still never told me what those markings on your arms mean," she smiled faintly. "Secrets are not shared so easily." He grinned and turned away, letting the pod seal slowly as the glass began to frost again. He heard her voice softly from within, "Do not look human." He paused and laughed quietly, too late. The chamber sealed completely. Light dimmed. Kala rested in silence, frozen in time between what was and what could be. Daniel sat again by the console, scanning the stars. He set a course for a forgotten region, an old neutral zone once used for diplomacy before the war. Maybe someone would hear their signal. Maybe no one would. But it did not matter. What mattered was this: he was not running anymore. He was not lost. He was a soldier who had found something more powerful than revenge. He had found purpose. Daniel reached over and played the message one more time. The words echoed through the empty ship. "This is not surrender. This is not weakness. This is a choice." Two enemies chose to see each other as more than targets. We chose to survive. We chose to hope. He let the words play into the dark. Somewhere out there, someone might be listening. Somewhere out there, another warrior might hesitate before firing. Another soldier might lower their blade and remember the code or rewrite it. The engines hummed steady as the ship moved into the endless night. Kalara slept in peace for the first time in years. Daniel watched the stars in silence, his breath slow, his hands steady. They were not heroes, not yet, but they were alive, and together they had changed something, even if only for themselves. The signal pulsed across the galaxy, waiting for someone to answer. And in the silence between stars, a human and an alien warrior floated forward into the unknown together, always.